Hello, everybody, and welcome to this Orionx webinar, Marketing in the Age of Coronavirus, 4 Actions to Take Now. I'm Dan Olds, joined by Shaheen Khan and Celia Chase. And first off, why this webinar? Why are we doing this now? This is a very touchy subject. Coronavirus is impacting literally everyone in the world right now. In fact, I'll bet that 90% or more of you are at home, in your home offices, dialed in that way. This is an unprecedented crisis in the world, but it's not going to last forever. And while it is extremely serious, and there are people out there that are sick and hopefully getting well, we have to move forward because this situation is going to be with us for a while. And it's a massive change to business. As we know, many businesses are closed right now, but many are also open. So what can we do now that's productive, that helps us move the ball forward while not being tone deaf at the same time? So let's talk about the speakers of the agenda first. I'm Dan Olds, and my favorite quote is from Abraham Lincoln: "Don't believe everything you read on the net." We also have Shaheen Khan with us. How you doing, Shaheen?
All right, Dano, those favorite quotes are good. Mine is a little bit more apropos for these days, and I've had it for many years, and that's change is easy when it's your own idea.
Very good. And there's Celia. How you doing, Celia?
Hey, Dan. Hey, Shaheen. And I'm really glad to be here today, and I love those informal bios, give everybody a little sense of who we are and who's on the webcast. And I just want to introduce our agenda and what we're going to go over here on the webinar. We have 3 main items. We're going to talk about the impact the coronavirus has had on business, and also the impact to marketing and therefore sales. But really, most importantly, we want to give the folks that are listening here today 4 actions that they can take now, and give some proactive recommendations in this unprecedented situation.
So the statistics are out there. You're being pelted with them 24 hours a day. We're going to pelt you with them one more time. This is the cancel everything culture now. And if you see the top headline, we're looking at the US at 24% drop in GDP next quarter. And that, as they say, is unprecedented. Stock market, way down. The Dow is down 30% as of probably yesterday. I don't think I had the guts to look at it today. Everybody is sheltering in place. Is it up today?
A little bit, yeah.
Oh, that's good. Okay, I'll take that. Everybody is sheltering in place. We've got near lockdown conditions in some places in the US, and particularly places like Italy and the UK and other places around the world. Hospitality and travel industry has been hit hard with more than $113 billion revenue drop just for the airlines. And as you know, since probably none of you are traveling, almost all trade shows and conferences and anything face-to-face has been canceled. So this is having a massive impact. But the tech industry is kind of a special case in a bad way. So much of our supply chain for hardware and things occurs or originates in Asia. And this is creating a huge problem for companies, particularly those that rely on the just-in-time type of deliveries. It's been radically disrupted. And one of the quotes here that Shaheen found that I really like is that it takes 2,500 items to build a car. It only takes 1 not to. And that's very true for any technology product. As you can see on the slide, disrupted demand and disrupted revenue. Sales cycles are going way out. And I don't believe that that's going to change anytime soon. And there are going to be some huge revenue hits for companies out there.
Yeah, and all this disruption is really, the industry's reacting to it. So, you've talked about the cancellations, companies are limiting travel, or they're outright canceling that too. Everyone's working from home, and these a lot of industry events, South by Southwest, now the Olympics has been postponed. There's so many examples of events getting canceled, and some of these are being converted to digital.
Seems like a pretty dire situation, eh? And I just want to point out that's my summer home. We're not there now.
I'm glad I'm not
we
there.
decided to, yeah, Yeah, I mean, most of the stuff is in the left of the house, so I think it's going to be fine.
So I think while some people like Dano like to live on the edge, I think for the rest of us, we need to really think about what we want to do going forward. As you said, Dano, that is not tone deaf, that is sensitive to what's all going on, but also recognizes how we must change what we do. So we've been thinking about it. We've been talking to a lot of other experts. We've tried to kind of consolidate what the advice is from all different corners. And generally, just to go through it methodically, the initial impact of the virus as it relates to sales and marketing is that all the in-person stuff is gone. So right there, it's kind of a second life all over again. So it is just face-to-face meetings are gone. And when you look at your marketing budget and we look at your marketing plans, it turns out quite a bit of it actually relies on face-to-face physical activities, and from trade shows to customer events, press events, you name it. There's really a lot that has to now be done in a different way. And really the only path that we have to do that is digital.
Yeah, so I think the digital, it's got to do more than it's been doing or has done. One of the things that kind of supports what we're seeing here is if you look at the Google activity, the search activity, and the pay-per-click, the pay-per-click ads are way down, and people are searching more on human-related things in terms of like nonprofits or healthcare or how can they help people. So there's already a shift in the way people are responding in their activity, and marketing has to adapt to this too. Some of our traditional mechanisms of blogs, webinars, podcasts, so forth, those aren't going away. We still really need to lean on those, but we're going to need to lean on them differently.
And what we're really saying here is in the center, digital has to become more human. By the way, as we start to go into this, if you have any questions, please type them into the box and we will answer them at the end. So, marketing in the age of coronavirus, we have a new audience. We have a much bigger audience out there. All of you that are homebound now or working as part of a skeleton staff in a cubicle farm or in a data center or wherever, you're online now because you can't really talk to people. There's no water cooler anymore. And we're all more isolated, which we believe means that you're much more receptive to outreach as long as it's engaging. And we're going to talk a lot more about that. And the commute times have come down quite a bit, which also means more screen time.
So really the thing is that if you're all home and your people, people want people content, people don't want SEO content. And while we're going to have to do everything we've done in digital and not like stop anything, we may have to reshift and rebalance the budget mix. And it is incredibly important now to provide people with content that is designed for people. Now, what do people want? So you can, do this several different ways, but the three pillars that we came down with is they want authenticity. So they want to talk to the real person. They don't want corporate speak. They don't want, political speech. They want just to connect as if they're talking to a friend. They want empathy. They want you to understand them. They want to understand you. And they want advocacy, or they favor advocacy. They want to talk to somebody who genuinely and passionately wants their success, not just trying to sell another piece of product. So we feel that all of this is kind of moving us away from a buy one, get one free kind of a model and to more of an emotional, intellectual relationship with the audience that we have. And all the burden of that is really on digital.
So this is kind of a new digital, as we're calling it. And this focus on people, this focus on the human, it's also laying the playing field. So less about the quantity and more about the quality of the engagement is really going to matter more. And not that there's not going to be advantages with the big guys, but it's going to matter less, a lot less. And really the whole brand focus really leading into your relationship, you're having that relationship with somebody is critical here. And that brings us to our first recommendation, getting into, providing this proact information. It's all about your relationship, the relationship you have with your clients, with your vendors, with your suppliers, and thinking of it as like a cross communication. So being transparent, owning the communications to your audience, to your clients. Think about the frequency that you're interacting with them, planning different scenarios. How long will this crisis go on? It will be a month, 6 months. What will you do in those different situations? So if you haven't already, you should be reaching out to folks, letting them know what your company is doing, what actions you're taking, and find out what they're doing and help them in real ways. How is the situation impacting them? And have it be, offering a two-way communication channel rather than just reporting out to them in a one-way fashion. And this outreach is less about being a one-off and more about having regular cadence and having it be a regular communication channel to build that trust and loyalty.
And a big thing is to put yourself in the position of where your customer is right now with this crisis going on. Find out what's going on with them. Show interest. And again, comes down to those three words that we're going to hammer many times: authenticity, empathy, and advocacy. And step number two, action item number two, is to humanize your digital. And that means two-way communication. And it's time to use stories, anecdotes, entertainment, humor, etc. You've got to show your company's personality so they can engage and hook into you. And actually, one quick example of something I did along these lines last year is I did a supercomputing road trip, driving from my home in Beaverton, Oregon, all the way to the supercomputing conference, biggest supercomputing conference in the world, in Dallas, Texas. And along the way, I stopped in at national labs, 8 of them in total, and filmed interviews, talked to them, found out what they were doing, learned some amazing things, also some looks at, just what it's like to drive a 5,987 mile trip as well. But that, I think, is a pretty good example of human marketing.
And really, when we talk about content and all those different ways that Dan was talking about content, we want to highlight 4 things. You think of thought leadership, which is really about being inspiring and insightful, or persuasive, which is more entertaining or educational. Storytelling, as you mentioned, is really, that's about being engaging. And a good example that I like there is Warby Parker. They're an eyeglass company, and they had a great storytelling video that showed how they make the glasses, and it was their step-by-step process, and showing really kind of the inside of their culture, their people, their values, and just made it very relatable to their company. And then the last one is descriptive, which is just, be to the point, straightforward.
Yeah, I think the important thing for me here is that this is not about the format of your content. It's not whether it's a podcast or a video or a blog or whatnot. It's about finding your voice. And if you notice, even on social media, folks who are more willing to expose themselves get a lot more engagement and a lot more following. And it is time for your organizations to do the same. So you want to find your voice. You want to expose a little bit of your insides. That might be uncomfortable for some companies, but I think that's what would be good and allows that human relationship to take place. And if you're not having fun, they're not having fun. If you're bored, they're probably bored. If you are having fun, however, they're probably having fun. And if you're authentic and energetic and passionate, then they're going to be authentic and energetic. So that's really the important thing, is that once you find your voice, you can then expose it and project it. And that leads us to action number 3. So that's cultivate the community. Now, the word community in the developer world with software development is a very common concept for several decades now. We think it's time to expand that to all of your constituency if you haven't done so already. Some of you have. We've done projects along these lines where we've tried to define the community and what the process is. And there are companies that are doing it and doing a very good job of it. There are software tools out there that help you do this. But your community is a big tent, and your community is the sales funnel. If you have a prospect that's not in your community, you're probably not doing it right. And the community attributes that matter in general is the strength of the community. Where does that come from? It's from the passion, connectedness. It's ultimately the trust that the community has, where they feel like excited when they join it. So really the strength of the community is the primary one. The size of the community is secondary, even though it's important. Intensity of a community can make up for the size of the community. And we see that really in all various walks of life. And it is important, therefore, that you define explicitly and cater explicitly to the categories of membership that you have in the community. If it's a long tent, you can think of people coming from one end as new members, they become regulars. At some point, they become advocates, and they become loyal advocates and recommend you to other people. And you might have even your inside folks that are participating as experts along with external members of that. And now all of that sets you up to look at the strength and the size of the community.
And really, Sheen's given a good background in terms of what community is and why it's important. And what we're recommending is you got to grow your community. In some cases, you may not really have one, so it could be about building a community. And there's a lot of different ways to go about doing that. And encouraging, what we're recommending is encouraging participation in things like online forums or meetups. You can offer tips and demos, tutorials, tying into what we were saying earlier about communication, increasing the cadence of communications, but offering that two-way ability. One way to really develop a community is to pull in some of the experts in your company. Maybe you have visionaries or people that are highly thought of, community gurus. You can even get guest speakers and panelists. Sharing resources is very effective. That's one thing that we've seen with many of our clients like you in terms of how-tos, what are the latest trends, things that are useful to them, and tips and information. So those are some of the ways that we've really seen community being effective. Lastly, on tip 4, we really want to emphasize you got to fight for your marketing budget. And you may be saying, I have to do that all the time, but this is really critical here.
And the thing is that for management in this sort of crisis, we believe that marketing is going to be an easy target for cuts. And we don't want to see that, because marketing right now is more important than ever. There's going to be a lot more digital marketing out there because it's really the only alternative. The airwaves are going to be crowded, my friends, and you have to break through and get that attention and get that engagement we're talking about with this whole human marketing thing. So how do you do that? Well, we believe that adopting human marketing and focusing on the journey, the corporate identity, focusing on who you are, sharing that with people is going to really help. You're going to have to live with what the business realities are, and it will really help if you could put yourself in your boss's shoes and help them deal with what they're dealing with. To defend, you're going to have to show the return on investment for your current programs, and keep in mind and tally this up that you spend an awful lot on travel, you spend a lot on trade shows, you spend a lot on face-to-face, which is all money that isn't being spent right now. So let's roll that into some new marketing that's designed to put you ahead of everyone else.
Yeah, and of course, all of this really depends on what realities your business is in. We all have been on both sides of the budget question. Every time you spend money for your contractors or for your staff, you are kind of in that position. And every time you go to your management to ask for money, you're in the other side of it. So we've all been on both sides of this table. And I would say the number one issue is to be able to put yourself in your boss's shoes, to understand the realities of the business and make sure what you're advocating for has a direct relationship to what matters to them right now. And if that relationship is not clear, well, then that's really the first assignment. You have to make sure that that relationship becomes clear and explicit and something that you can defend. So let's sum it up. We do think this is a good time for human marketing. It is new digital, and it's about ongoing relationship. It's about humanizing digital. It's about cultivating a community, and it's about securing the budget. And as Dano mentioned, there is quite a bit of activity out there right now. Some really good articles that make a very good case about why marketing right now is really exactly what you need to do. Now, if you can weather the storm, this is the time to be truthful to your brand promise, to do everything to put your money where your mouth is, to try to help and build your brand and build your funnel for when business does come back. And when it comes back, there is going to be a pent-up demand. It is going to have a bounce back at some point. Even though it's going to be from off of a lower base, it is going to happen like that.
So that's a great summary, Shaheen. And, that's, in a summary, those are the four actions that we recommend people take now in being proactive. And it really aligns with a lot of things that we're seeing and that we've also been doing at Orionx. And as you're listening to this, it may seem a little bit daunting, or how do I get started? But we do a lot of these things that we've been talking about, and we can help in all of these areas. And just to call out a couple of them, for example, human marketing. This is a new phrase, maybe some new things that we've been talking about, and it's going to require looking at it in a fresh perspective. What sort of budget am I going to need? What will an execution plan look like? What's the planning cycle? And we've worked through that with many clients, have experience with that. We've talked a lot about community. So, what are some of the tactics that you would need to grow it? How do I go about doing that? And we can offer specific guidance and approaches that we've seen that have worked and that are effective. Crisis communication, or really any communications, deep experience on the team in terms of messaging, how to be transparent in an appropriate and effective manner. What is the frequency? How do you do scenario planning? So those are just some examples in terms of how this really ties into the recommendations that we've offered up today and how our team has that deep experience.
And I guess for my part, being on the research side of this, I really, really enjoy putting together engaging collateral videos, podcasts, research reports, that sort of thing, along with educational webinars and podcasts hosted by our research analysts, one of which would be me. I really like doing that, particularly working on the really creative type things that are going to cut through all of the other clutter and noise out there. We also have quite a bit of experience in doing online event management as well. And as it says on the slides, we're just an email away. And you see the entire team up there. One of the things I want to mention again as we start to wind up is that you can put any questions in the box and we will answer them. We'll read them and we'll answer them just like magic. And so as we wind up, what questions do we have? Let's go ahead and take a look at the question hopper and get started on these. Here's one. If I'm not in healthcare, where the clicks are, as Celia said, how do I get attention for my company product without sounding like an ambulance chaser?
You want to take it, or you want me to take a crack at it?
You can take a crack at it.
Yeah.
And you know what? You take a crack at it, then I'll fix it.
That's a great idea. Usually our model is that Dano takes the easy ones and I'll take the less easy ones. But anyway, so I do think that the way you get engagement right now is to do human marketing. That's really why we did this. That's why all of our thinking led us to what you see today. That in this time, to try to get any engagement, it requires authenticity. You really cannot use this with any other intent. And the whole engagement will come, and it comes because you have the relationship and people genuinely start trusting you. It is really about that whole trusted advisor relationship that has been talked about in the industry for a while. So that's really what it means. If you want to get engagement, just participate as a human and see what you would do if you were interacting with your friends and if you're, with your neighborhood, and, put a little bit of emotion in and a little bit of, just show your emotions. That would be my recommendation.
Yeah, and I wanted to add on to that, Shaheen, too, because I think a good example, you've talked a lot about community here today. Airbnb is a great example of building a really strong community. And, they're essentially a software platform company, if you think about it, but they have a section on their website that is called Community Stories. And their hosts talk about why they're doing what they're doing, how they've connected with their guests, and really created a whole sense of experience and relatable and replicable experiences. So it makes something that, might just seem like, you can stay in a home or stay in a room, really become about an experience that you want to participate in.
What I would say on top of all of this, and this is for particularly business to business marketing, this is your chance to do a Super Bowl commercial. The size of the budget needed to do something like that, get creative. You don't need a huge budget. What you do need to do is be authentic, be engaging, and for me, what I like is some entertainment. People are out there home trapped. They're online, they have to be. And like the tech people are going to start looking at tech products. That's where you can reach out and grab them if you're in that industry. Engage them. See if you can get something viral. Okay, I think we beat that one to death, didn't we?
Yeah, I think from now on, we're not going to, all three of us, ask the same question, answer the
Well,
same question.
maybe we will. Maybe we will. Here's another, this is a very good question. Are you saying that I should not do search engine optimization anymore? I still need people to find me. Do I ignore SEO completely during this time? No.
I'll take, yeah, no, we're not saying stop doing SEO. And I kind of did reference that in my portion. We do think, however, that you need to be prepared to adjust your marketing mix. So if you are doing so much SEO and so much something else, you may have to readjust it and rebalance the budget. You also have to look at the data that you're getting from SEO and see if it is really moving the needle right now. It is very important to be found, but it's also true that a lot of the web data that we get is incomplete and may or may not really be directly connected to your ultimate objectives, which is kind of engagement and moving the funnel down. So all of that requires a bit of a step back, but at the end, you're going to have to do some of it, yes.
Okay, I think we've got time for a couple more questions. Let me get right to these things. Our company is already pretty good at thought leadership using stories and occasionally humor. We think we're doing human marketing now, so what else should we be doing? Well, it sounds like they're doing pretty well. I would say keep doing it, double down on it, and start building those communities. Use this as a springboard to pull people in deeper. Anybody want to add anything?
I
Go ahead,
did want
Celia.
yeah, I just did want to add on that in terms of solidifying the brand. So it sounds like they already have the means to do the human marketing, and like to your point, Dan, double down on that and have this be a time about building that relationship and having them connect with your brand. And they're going to remember this, and this is something where they're going to have that connection as things continue to move forward.
Great. Okay. Final question. Which B2B companies are doing a good job of building community? Jump ball, who wants to take that? I think you had some experience with that, right, Shaheen?
Well, I think we have done some work with some Fortune 50 companies that have, as I mentioned also in passing, that's the one that comes to my mind right now, who had a very concerted effort to build a community that was more than just kind of developer focused, but the whole big tent thing. Now, because they're Fortune 50, they had the wherewithal to really resource it quite nicely for success. As all these things go in marketing, you can always use more money, but I thought they had a pretty healthy budget to get this done.
And but you don't need a huge budget to do this.
No, you need to get started, and there's a lot you can do with the tools that are out there, open source software, just WordPress plugins, and there's a whole lot you can do. But the point is the intent, like you're saying. The strategy was to recognize that the community is a big deal that we want to leverage as a big asset. And that really was, to me, very enlightened. And I believe it has served them well. I continue to be a part of it and see how it's progressing. And it really was the expansive view that I was talking about, which you can do. As I said, as Dana was saying, this does not require just necessarily a big company size behind it. It does require that you see it that way and you define it that way and you have the time to build it. And right now is a great time to build it because there is such a demand shock. By the time people really come back and start spending like they did a few months ago, you have the time to build now. And if you can weather the storm and if you can actually chip away at it, now is the time to do it.
But it really comes down to, in my mind at least, those principles of human marketing that we're laying out that are, engaging, empathetic, advocates, but you got to get their attention, you got to hold it, and you have to get them to engage. and that's all a matter of having, in my mind, that engaging content out there, that human marketing content. So with that, we want to thank you. We're at the bottom of the hour, a little bit past it. Thank you all for attending. Thank you for the fantastic questions. We really appreciate it. We're going to have some examples of what we believe are some of the best human marketing campaigns that we've seen up on our website, along with a copy of this webinar, so you can download it, play it for your friends, your family events, things like that. So thank you very much for attending. We really appreciate it and hope to talk to you soon.